Good morning to you all on a nice Sunday morning. It's quite warm out, funnily enough. My cold's a little bit better. I can actually speak without croaking like a blooming frog. Anyhow, we come to a few more little slide-in trays from the lamp collection which I got a little while ago. Well, more than a few years ago now. And we thought we'd have a little look at these. Some of these you may have seen before. I may have put up either on YouTube or a lighting gallery. I don't know. But anyhow, let's go through them. Any questions, please ask. Now, I know a lot of you are interested in these, and I know there's a lot of interest from the continent, particularly from Germany and France, and it is good. I'm always welcome comments. In fact, a friend of mine gave me a link to a YouTube on making Nixie tubes. It was unbelievable. It really was. They made it virtually right from start. And on there, and I have mentioned this as regards sodium lamps, I was talking about getters. Well, on this video about Nixies, you can see how the getter is actually fired. They use a high frequency coil outside and it's fired through the glass. So I'm glad they showed this, because it gives you an idea what I was talking about, and hopefully makes a bit of sense to it. Anyhow, I promise I'm not going to be political today. I'm not going to mention anything about Brexit. Oh, sorry. I'm certainly not going to have a moan about fish equipment that don't work. I decided today I'm going to stay on the subject, which is looking at these lamps. Anyhow, let's start. We'll start the first one. Now, not officially a lamp. I'm going to show it sort of easily like that rather than put it down. What we have here, show you the inside, is an EHT rectifier. Years ago, television sets used to have one of these fitted in the high voltage section, which went to the large tube, or the screen rather, the cathode ray tube, and they'd all have these. Sometimes they were actually on pins where they were plugged in like a normal valve, or other times they were wired in. They were normally encapsulated in a metal shield to prevent X-rays, or Röntgen rays if you're in Germany. I have to get all the words out. Well, there we are. It is possible that they would give out harmful X-rays, and that's why they were kept under presumably a mu metal shield. Anyhow, without taking too much time, I think these are the same as well, yeah. We come down to earth with a little indicator bulb. Yeah, it's a worker by Philips. £30 volts, 6 watt. 30 volts, 6 watts. HK, that is obviously the code when it was made. It's a few years old. I can't vouch for the exact age, but it's fairly old. And if you look very carefully, you'll see a blackness on the pinch. They also showed how they did the pinch on that Nixie video. Well, this, I believe, is a paint that is painted on there to reduce any traces of air. that might be left in the lamp after evacuation with a vacuum pump. We're on that same first container. Here we have a xenon flash tube. It's possibly come out of a flash gun or a strobe. You need quite high voltage to make it strike. Normally they've got like a striking electrode on the side, but this one doesn't. It's just got your 2 electrodes and the tube, which is made into a helix. Xenon flash tube. It's never been used. Mind you, don't get me on talking about electronic flash guns. Brings back memories, that does. Unpleasant memories. But I'll tell you, when I was much younger than I am now, and probably, well, definitely didn't know all the things I thought I knew, I had a flash gun from a camera and it didn't work. So I thought, oh, I'll take it to bits and have a little look inside. Well, at that time I was sitting down in an easy chair talking to some visitors that I had at the time. Anyhow, I was fiddling about with this and didn't know why it didn't work. Anyhow, I accidentally touched the 2 terminals on the capacitor. I think I had the biggest shock I've ever had, and I had to be good. I couldn't say any naughty words. I just sort of sat there thinking to myself, that was a stupid thing to do. But you remember these things. So, story I suppose would be, if you're working on stuff like that, make sure the capacitor's been discharged, even if they have a leakage resistor or a draining resistor across it to slowly drain them. They can hold a nasty charge, and some of the larger jobs can kill you stone dead. Anyhow, let's leave that, just a point of interest. Oh, we've got another one here. Here we've got another flash tube. This one does have a striking electrode. The middle connector is for the, it helps it to strike. And this is connected through the, well, not through the glass, it's connected around the glass electrostatically, I suppose you could say. And the high voltage is applied to the outer 2 wires, and then to strike it you touch onto the middle wire with a voltage, and at that time it should flash. That too has probably come from a strobe lighting or an electronic flash gun. Let's see next what we've got. I've always been talking about valves, or tubes if you're in America. The first thermionic valve was invented by a Mr. Fleming in England. It was a diode, had 2 electrodes or 2 parts, followed by DeForest in America, who made a triode. So from those early times, this is where the valves come from. Unfortunately, you don't often see valves now. They've been taken over by transistors. Mind you, large transmitting sets still use valves. Anyway, what we're looking at now is a tuning indicator. If you can imagine the old Grundig tape recorders, you had like a recording level, and you'd get 2 bars which appeared along there, which met in the middle. Now, if they just touched, it was the right volume, but if you made them jump sort of to go across it, you were putting too much power in, so it was a device. Now also in radios they were used as a tuning indicator, and the same idea as you tuned into a station. And yeah, radio sets you did tune in the old days. They weren't like they are now with blinking blooming digits. You had to tune them in. I remember Radio 1, Luxembourg. God, I'm showing my age again. Anyhow, that was the valve. This is made by, I think it's Tungsram. Yeah, Tungsram, which incidentally is the company which I believe is taking over all the GE lamps in Europe. I think I'm right on that one. If I'm not, someone can correct me. Anyhow, that's what that is. Tuning indicator. They also made them, and I haven't got one to show you, where it's at the end that you get a little round, like an eye at the end, which is broken into a sector, and it closes and opens depending on whether you're on tune or not. If I find one, I'll have a little talk about it. You might guess I love talking. Also got a few little neons. This is one of the modern ones. There's a tiny neon inside there. It's got a plastic coating round it. There would be a resistor, I imagine, in here. What's the voltage? Let's see what the voltage. You have to look at these and see what voltage it says. If it says 230 volts, then you're safe to run it on 230 volts. But if it doesn't say anything, beware. It might need a series resistor. Another one there. Oh, that's the same type. Let's see if there's a different one. I've got there's another one. That's what you normally find, just two straight electrodes which would light up with that typical orangey glow. This is made by, looks like Hivac England. Hivac had were in Suffolk as far as I know, and I told a little story, well, not a little story, as far as I'm concerned it was true, about my uncle testing cycle bulbs by the original firm Trivita, but Hivac now is under General Instruments, which I believe is a branch of Chicago Miniature. What shall we look at next? Oh, let's look at that. You're probably wondering what that is. Wonder no more. 2 pins there and a bayonet. Years ago, and I can remember this, I'm going back again, showing my age, I was taken to my father's work at weekends or on a Sunday when he was called in to do extra overtime. In there, the illumination was by 5-foot fluorescent lamps, so 80 watts, and they were bayonet ended. So the lamp would be held in by a couple of terry clips. In fact, the light fittings were, I believe, made up by my father. He had a choke. In those days they were called chokes. Now they call them a ballast. There was a ballast on top and a starter. The starter was the large type, not the tiny ones that you get now. There was never a power correcting capacitor there. It was just a choke and the starter. Well, anyhow, getting back to the tubes, these, when they stopped making the 5 foots with bayonet, they disregard that noise, an alarm I've got. They made them with a bipin, and that would fit onto the end so that it could replace the bayonet lamp. Sorry about that, I'm going to move it out the way so it doesn't interfere. There are all kinds of funny things here. I'm going to have to move this over here so it doesn't interfere. As I say, as sure as anything, if I do something, something's going to occur which messes things up. You might still hear it faint, but don't worry. Anyway, that was the reason of the bipin. In this other box we've got, I think these are called Acorn valves. So named because they look a bit, I suppose, like an acorn. I think that's what they call them. It's definitely a valve. There's one which would be soldered in place. You've got your 5 connections. Possibly a triode. It's got a number on there. It's got a name, a Raytheon. It's an American company. VR59. So you look up VR59 on the Vintage Valve site or the Valve Museum, and you'll be able to find out all about that. It looks to me like a triode, but it's a wild guess. Obviously got your heater connections, and you've got 3 other connections. That's what I'd think it would be, but I may be wrong. And we're getting another visitor. Now you stay down there. Here we have a rather unusual lamp. It's like a car bulb, and I'm going to have to chase her off. No, go away. Go on. I know. Come there you get. Down you get. No, you're down. She's a lovely cat, but she wants to be in all the videos I do. It's, as I say... Oh, she's come back again. Look, I'm going to have to put this down while I move the cat away. Come on, in you go in though. Come on, in you go. Oh, you're a naughty girl. Naughty girl, go in there, come on. Shh. You're in there, go on. Yeah, sorry about that. Oh, you might have seen my ugly mug then when I turned the camera around. I hope not. I might have broken it. Anyhow, I was talking about this lamp. It's a bayonet cap. I don't know what it was used for. I've got an idea. No, it's 12 volts, so... It's made by Criselco, which was a company half owned by Philips and half owned by the English Osram, or Osram GEC. They were up at Kempston in Bedfordshire. I'm just wondering what this was used for. I've got an idea, and I may be wrong, and if someone else has got an idea out there, let us know. London Transport buses used bayonet bulbs for their interior lighting, but granted they were on 24 volts and this is on 12, so I don't know. They did make 12 volt bus bulbs, so I've got an idea it could be that. It's certainly unusual. It has just a normal lamp, like a side or head or tail lamp on a car, but a bayonet cap, the normal standard bayonet. Now, pressing on. I wonder what this lamp was for. I've got an idea, having put up one the other day, and someone commented, said it could be an exciter lamp for the soundtrack off a film. This I think could be the same, and if you look at it carefully, see if I can show it up. The lead-in wires, like that other lamp, are shiny. A good quality lead-in wire. I may be wrong, but that's what I think it could be. It's made by Philips, and in fact there's a number on there which I probably could check out. HO. Oh, Holland. That's not a number, it's Holland. It's got a number 7253C. It's 4 volt at 0.75 amp. 101K, and it's a small pre-focus base, which means that would fit in and give the exact position of the lamp, so it would obviously be that way round, I would think. Anyway, any thoughts on that? I'd love to know. I'd love to know. Anyway, I'll put that one down. I hope I'm not taking too long. I've mentioned miners' headlamp bulbs they wore on their heads, or lamps that they would carry down to the mine, and that's one of them. They're low voltage. I'll show you the voltage on it. Here they are. You can see that. If you can't see it, it's made in England, Criselco. No, it's not. It's made in Holland. It's made in Holland. As I said, Criselco were half Philips and half GEC. Well, this lamp is made in Holland, so it was presumably made by Philips. It's got the Criselco name on it. And there's the filament. There is writing on the side there, which I can't read. But these would be about 2 volts, very low voltage, because they had to run on rechargeable batteries that was in the miners' lamps. They were possibly called knife batteries, an early form of the rechargeable batteries that we use now. Knife batteries. Yeah, I'll leave that. I have shown this before, and a good friend of mine told me exactly what it was. Thank you, Alec. You did. You'll probably see it again. It was out of a microscope. It's a discharge lamp. My knowledge of discharge lamps is nil, to be honest about that. I'm more interested in the history and that of the lamps with filaments. But that's what Alec told me it was, and I believe what he says. It was in a microscope. I think it was a mercury vapour type, but once again, if I'm wrong, Alec, come back and put me in my place. And what we got here, we're coming to the end of it. You might be pleased to hear. Some indicator lamps there. Now let's look at this last little batch. And that one I've shown you. There's 2 of those. There's 2 of those. I'm sure they're exciter lamps. Now here we got a little neon. You've got your contacts at the end, which I presume you just solder onto. It's never been used. There's not even a tag on these to actually go into a printed circuit. So I would suggest it is a neon indicator of some kind, or a voltage stabilizer. I'm guessing, but that's what I would think it is. As you can see, it's not enormous. Now this unusual lamp would have come out of a daylight signalling unit, or a lamp associated with that type of idea. These were slid into a holder. They were so made that they'd be in the exact position, because behind it you would have a reflector, and it was used for signalling during the daytime, hence the name, daylight signalling. And Morse code was transmitted out as a flashing light. Don't ask me what the first code, the Morse code is. Unfortunately, I never took it, and that held me back with my amateur licence as a radio ham. I have got a licence, but it doesn't include the Morse part of it. Well, there's the lamp itself. It's a worker, there's nothing wrong with it. The name on it, if I can make it out. Well, it's made by Philips. "10 volts. Something amps, so it's not very clear. The printing, well, it's not printed, it's etched into the metal. Made in Austria. It's made in Austria. And the contacts are obviously the outer and the centre. So that would be a daylight signalling lamp. Years ago, from surplus places, you could buy old units which consisted of a Morse key and the actual lamp unit, and there was always a bulb in there as well. I remember getting one as a kid. Don't ask me what happened to it, many years ago, and that had a similar lamp. It was actually more rounded than that, but it had the same type of base. And I'm going to show you this. I think that is a thermistor, not a Beretta, thermistor. You look at it careful, between the two wires that are holding the filament, I'm hoping it shows up, you can see a little bead. See a tiny bead, which looks like it's on the actual filament. I'm pretty sure this would be a thermistor. I know on, not on this one, but British Telecom use thermistors on their phones. If you were a party line, this is something from the past again, you would ring either one wire, the A, we call it the A and B, the Americans call it tip and ring, but one party would ring earth to one of the wires, either A or B, and the other party would ring to the other wire. But you had to make sure that you didn't get bell, because the bell was sort of wired in such a way, you'd get what is known as bell tinkle. So what they did, they wired a thermistor in series with the ringer, or the bell. That would run on a higher voltage, about 70 volts. And it would not tinkle simply because the thermistor had to get warm to allow more current to pass. So it was very crafty. More current didn't pass because the actual ringing was not enough to break it down. So that is why the thermistor was used. And they use it in quite a few applications. Some are used in digital thermometers, which give the temperature. I think it's called a K-type thermistor. Anyhow, I wander off into other things. Now,